shut up for a second, please.
We're in a cultural war.
How do you think you are talking to me like that?
I resent the fact that your implication that only you are a Canadian.
The culture war is back.
And away we go. The culture war is back, and the culture war is on. We get down to brass tacks on issues that confront us in our culture, and one such that is very interesting is the spanking study that's been released today, and talks about consequences later into adulthood if you spank your kids, and that has obvious ramifications. It's an issue that will not go away. And the other is, of course, circumcision being banned in a court in Cologne, Germany. And to speak to those issues, we've been joined yet again in the studio. It's a long time no see for the Rabbi Mendel Kaplan, founder and spiritual leader of Chabad at Flamingo and Thornhill. Rabbi, good to have you back on the show.
It's great to be back.
And joining us for the first time, Leslie Rosenblood is a policy advisor for the Canadian Secular Alliance.
A pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right. You know, Rabbi, I want to start with you on the circumcision question because I'm intrigued, obviously. This is right in your wheelhouse, I'm assuming. When a court imposes a law that bans this practice, and strictly it's involuntary religious circumcision that is illegal here. Involuntary meaning, I guess, the young child, be it boy or girl, cannot consent. Therefore, they deem that they need to, they have a duty to protect, in other words, because to some minds it's seen as genital mutilation without consent being given. Has the court overstepped its reach here?
I think you have to put this in perspective. We've been circumcising our children for 3,700 years. It's a cornerstone of our Jewish faith. And it's really not about circumcision. It's about the Brit, which means a covenant. This is our eternal covenant with God. It's not the first time that somebody has tried to outlaw the Brit. It happened recently in communist Russia. It happened in ancient times with the Greeks and the Romans, and by many of our enemies in between. Some of them were well-meaning, some of them weren't. Nobody is going to destroy the Jewish people, and nobody is going to destroy the Jewish religion. We've been around for nearly 4,000 years. We are an eternal people. We are God's people. Our covenant has served us well, and nothing is going to make us stop it. If you force Jews to go underground, you'll be endangering those children. So, if anything, I think the courts should be respecting the religious freedom of the Jewish people, a religious freedom that has this ancient, very ancient and deep history. And whether or not circumcision should be allowed for other reasons, that's a great question. I don't know.
Perhaps all right, well, you're saying, okay, you've given us the context for the Jewish faith, religious freedom. Muslims are equally disturbed by this ruling in Germany. They believe that this oversteps the boundaries of their right to practice their religion as they see fit. And we've had cases of where the young females are concerned, particularly from sub-Saharan Africa, within the Muslim faith. That might be seen as genital mutilation. Would you afford the same protections, or would you at least make a rational case for young girls needing to be protected from this so-called religious freedom in the Muslim faith?
Well, certainly not, John. And that's because the fact that the Western world has for at least 7 decades now made circumcision a standard practice is kind of indicative that it's not really mutilation. If it was a mutilation or a violation or a disabling of function, then probably the Western world would not have been doing it for this long. Whereas, to the best of my knowledge, the secular world has never adopted female circumcision. Judaism certainly renounces that, absolutely. And at the end of the day, you're asking me here as a rabbi. I can only speak as a rabbi. I can only speak as somebody who's received a 3,300-year-old tradition from Mount Sinai, and we intend to keep circumcising our sons and our grandsons and to further our bond with Almighty God.
All right, over to Leslie now. Having heard that, I mean, he's explained it rather eloquently, the rabbi has. Do you see where this court might have justification for wanting to protect kids who can't give consent?
I think the important aspect here is to have public policy and laws based on fact. We need to know what the truth is, what are the actual effects of any minor or major surgical procedure, both in the short term and in the long term. And as we learn more and as we develop our knowledge further, we may change our mind. Something that seemed like a good idea for a very long time may no longer be a good idea. We thought that the sun revolved around the earth for many thousands of years. It was an incorrect belief, and if we maintain that, we wouldn't have been able to go to the moon or have cell phones with satellites today.
So what are you implying here? That's maybe the rabbi and his tradition, the history of, as he said, passed on from Mount Sinai, going back 3,300 years, I think he gave us the time. They may have it wrong after all.
It is possible. It would not be the only element of faith that has had a long tradition that has proven to be incorrect.
I don't know what that means, proven to be incorrect. I believe that I believe in God and I believe in revelation. And how do you prove something to be incorrect? I'm not coming here trying to rationalize or intellectualize circumcision. I'm telling you this is what God told Abraham. I'm telling you that God told Abraham that by doing this, you'll establish my covenant. This is an act of faith. This is an act of religious devotion. And I don't really see how you can study something any differently than something that's happened for 3,700 years. It served us quite well. The Jewish people seem to have been well adjusted and seem to have been well accomplished, despite the fact that they're circumcised. So to suggest that there's any long-term negative ramifications due to circumcision is a little bit far-fetched. And ultimately, this is not a question of studying. It's not a question of scientific analysis. This is a question of taking away somebody's right to practice their faith.
Absolutely. You are an authority on the Jewish faith and on what the Jewish observances are. However, I would say that when we're talking about the physical body, this is absolutely an area for scientific inquiry to determine how the body works, to determine what the effects are of this surgical procedure. I am not sure that I am not commenting on the accuracy of this particular German court ruling. My point is that a member of the Secular Alliance, we should have the scientific evidence be the basis for
So you're saying
policy.
Modern science and medicine can trump this faith-based practice of 3,700 years?
Absolutely. For example, for several decades, male circumcision was standard medical practice for all males born in North America, and it was routine. You had to essentially opt out of the procedure. In the last decade and a half to 2 decades, this is no longer the case. It remains an optional procedure, but you must now opt in because the assumed medical benefits of circumcision were proven not to be as great as had been previously thought.
Well, wasn't that the original or the origin of the tradition? It was for hygienic purposes, Rabbi.
Absolutely not.
No.
No.
All right, so disabuse me of that notion then.
Absolutely not. Look in the Bible. Look in the book of Genesis, and you see where God speaks to Abraham, and he says, "This is my covenant between you and me, and between you and your children." This is a purely religious thing. Perhaps my good friend is correct. Maybe circumcision should be banned for people for non-religious reasons. Maybe the scientific evidence of it being beneficial is minimal. I don't know. I don't care if everybody else stops circumcising the children. In fact, I don't support circumcision. I support the Brit. I support the covenant with God. I am only concerned with the religious act of devotion.
Okay, is that religious act of devotion mandated to happen at childhood?
It's mandated to happen at 8 days old. That's in the Bible that we were given 3,329 years ago.
Well, see, this gets to the consent aspect.
So let's make a large assumption here. Let's make the assumption that the scientific consensus comes in and says that circumcision is a net harm and should be banned, except under perhaps very specific circumstances. It's not established, but let's make that assumption for the purposes of this discussion. If we then pass a law that bans circumcision based on our best medical and scientific knowledge, to say that because I am of a particular religion, because I have a particular faith, I should therefore be exempt from this law, is wrong.
Is wrong?
Is absolutely wrong. If there should be one law that applies to all people of our society, and one cannot say because I am of a particular faith, I belong to this particular sect, I have a particular interpretation of my particular God, this law or this set of laws do not apply to me. That is, in my view, a highly dangerous and immoral stance to take.
Well, we've always got people, though, citing religious freedom. It's protected in our own charter, is it not, Rabbi?
It absolutely is, and methinks that my dear opponent oversteps his boundaries. Don't call Judaism a sect or an extreme group. We're talking about
I'm not
what
restricting,
millions of people have done for 3,700 years since the days of Abraham. We're talking about something which is the cornerstone of our faith. This is not the first time somebody has tried to ban our Brit. It's happened time and again by people all over the world. And we have persevered, and so we will.
Well, it says here, according to the court ruling, the fundamental right of the child to bodily integrity outweighs the fundamental rights of the parents. The parents, their religious beliefs and all, they want to protect the child. Has the court overstepped its boundary here, or its reach, insofar as saying they've got a duty to protect, but what they're doing now is they're trumping the parent's right to, let's say, have the child indoctrinated or brought into the faith with, as you say, after 8 days, the Brit, part of the Holy Covenant between God and Jews. And the Muslim faith as well is brought into the equation as well because they believe it's their right, and this is inadmissible interference on the part of the state. Of course, our friend from the Canadian Secular Alliance, Leslie Rosenblood, believes that perhaps science has made the final determination. If the net effect is that the child is harmed, and there is a school of thought that believes that, then the duty of the court to protect these children without their consent